When we convened this meeting, we thought it was very important to have the same approach on how to quickly settle the crises in the vast area of Middle East and North Africa. We proposed that together with you, we think about what can be done in order to stop the suffering of people today and prevent other tragedies and strife in one of the least stable parts of the world. We're convinced at the same time that no matter what decisions we find, they will only be effective provided the two conditions are met. First of all, they need to be truly collective. Second of all, they need to be in line with the standards and principles of international law. As an analysis and experience shown that unilateral attempts to resolve crises are doomed to failure. And the flawed practice of unilateral action when some member states of the UN declare that other member states are pariahs when they try to undermine the regimes they don't like was not only not helpful to the resolving the issues in the region, but created new ones instead. It's obvious that in order to reduce the potential for the crisis, what is needed is to bring together the international and regional efforts, including through effective inclusive formats with a central role played by the UN and its Security Council. Let me repeat, with the leading role played by the UN and its Security Council. The true pooling of efforts of all states in order to counteract the regional threats requires an honest partnership dialogue. And this kind of dialogue can be carried out, should be carried out on the basis of abandoning the efforts to resolve conflicts through force and also through supporting the good offices of the Secretary General of the UN, the regional organizations and individual member states, without politicizing the humanitarian aspects of the issue and fully in line with the commitments under international law, first and foremost under the UN Charter. The Russian Federation advocates developing a positive and unifying agenda for the entire international community so as to settle the situation in the Middle and Near East and in North Africa. The necessary prerequisite at the same time here is to respect the sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity of the countries in the region. What is needed is to try and create a truly broad front in order to counteract the terrorist threat. And this is something we still need to combat. And this despite the already considerable advances made against them in Iraq and Syria. We also need to put an end to the attempts to use terrorist groups as a tool for positions in the new regional balance of forces. It's important that we collectively counteract the chemical and weapons of mass destruction terrorism. At the same time, we should not play up to bandits and terrorists in their provocations with chemical weapons and using them as a pretext for aggressive acts. It is unacceptable when using these provocations, people very early on put tags on the governments they do not like. They make the work of experts in order to determine genuine facts all the more difficult. It is also not at all in line with the logic of finding collective solutions, the attempts to divide international organizations such as OPCW. Similar situation happens when there is a lack of desire to support when the Security Council of a resolution on improving the methods of work of a joint investigation mechanism in Syria and the attempt to endow the OPCW with the functions which are not in the chemical conventions, the functions which are basically within the purview of the Security Council. At the opening tomorrow special session of the Conference of States Parties to OPCW, we unfortunately run the danger there of witnessing a situation where a technical entity, an attempt is being made to convert the technical entity into an area of political battles. The key point of our joint work in the region should be creating the efforts which should improve the general atmosphere of trust. This is of key importance in relations between Arab states, Israel, and Iran. Let me recall that in its resolution 598, passed in 1988, the Security Council entrusted the Secretary General to work out together with the regional sides the confidence and stability building measures in the region. And this is obviously a complicated issue. It requires discreet and painstaking discussions and very sensitive approaches. But work in this area should begin. And we stand ready to help as much as we can by conducting dialogue with our partners in Iran, in Israel, in Palestine, in Syria, in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, in United Arab Emirates, in Qatar, in Egypt, and Turkey, and in other countries of the region. The end goal here should be creating such a regional security architecture that could be truly, genuinely inclusive in nature and presuppose that all countries in that area will participate in that. The first step here could be holding a conference with the participation of Persian Gulf states to discuss those issues which have to do with ensuring regional security. Obviously, certain guarantees will need to be extended here, first and foremost on the part of the Permanent Five of the Security Council. But in the future, such a conference could be further extended to other Middle Eastern countries. It is important to introduce urgent measures to disseminate the culture of peace on the interethnic and interreligious basis. And this will help us avoid further strife. It's important to make sure that the conflicts in the region is not colored as an interreligious strife, including strife between the Sunni and Shiite. It's obvious that creating multi-religious communities is fully in line in contemporary realities and will help us reduce the longevity of the conflicts. We have a great deal of experience in bringing together ethnic and religious, and on this basis, we support the proposal of the Interparliamentary Union to organize, together with the UN, a world conference on interreligious and interethnic dialogue in which the heads of states, parliaments, and representatives of world religions could participate, and we would be ready to host such a conference in Russia in 2022. We are convinced that the Unity of Security Council will be helped by sending Security Council missions into conflict areas in the Middle East. In these areas and all other areas, we're ready to work with interested partners on the basis of open and impartial, without threats and negative pressure. Thank you very much. I now resume my function as President of the Council, and I now give the floor to the members of the Security Council. I now give the floor to the representative of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we thank the Russian presidency for organizing this important debate to allow us to discuss the situation in the Middle East and North Africa in a comprehensive manner. And we are pleased to see you, Mr. Deputy